Welcome back, everybody, ahead of game number 2, Crest Gaming Act versus V3 Esports and Middlecott. As a CGA fan, you're probably feeling fairly happy about this matchup, considering their current 6-game loss streak.
Happy, but also somewhat nervous. There's no way that Crest Gaming Act lose to V3, right? But yeah,
Right.
like you alluded to, it's not been a great last half of the split for Crest Gaming Act. Not been a great split in totality for V3. This is a bit more likely to be an interesting game. A bit more of a Sengoku Burning Core, if anyone was watching last summer. But definitely a matchup that can still have implications for standings.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how, because I mean, we're looking towards 5th and 6th place, right? This is really important specifically for Crest Gaming to ensure they don't end up when playoffs come, they don't end up against the Sengoku, which is a very scary position to be in. I think even though they have had positive games against these teams, Crest Gaming are entirely inconsistent against these teams. And as you mentioned, in the latter half have been really, really struggling. So we're going to be looking at Crest Gaming to clean this up for the clean 3-0 against V3. V3 have yet to win a game this split, but that's not to say that they've been entirely missing in proactive play, and I think there are going to be some really big picks in draft that hopefully we'll get to elaborate more on. But stuff like the Syndra, which I think, as well as this Rakan-Zaya combination that Dress Code and Hetel really seem to be opting towards, that could maybe lend some proactive play to V3 and maybe find them their first win of the split.
I'm going to go completely off-piste for a moment because we forgot to mention before that with DFM's winning game 1, that now locks Axis out of playoffs contention. So we now have our top 6 teams, and it now becomes a matter of who slots in where. And so for CGA right now, as we were alluding to, every win matters, because if they drop a couple of games and Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming have a really strong close to their split, CGA could find themselves in that 6th place spot, and that is not a place they want to be, Oak.
Absolutely. 6th place is scary because, I mentioned it there, but Sengoku, Rascal Jesters there, they're going to be occupying the upper part of the bracket, which means in turn, whoever 6th place will probably end up against those teams. And that, I mean, especially for, CGA, they want to bring back this upswing, as well as SoftBank Hawks really kind of slowly ramping into full effect. Finally, we're starting to see this team emerge. So suddenly playoffs contention very, very tight for this fifth spot, because they really they want that extended seeding so that they can maybe find some position in playoffs to get a couple of best of 3s in before you play against those upper parts of the ladder.
Looking back to this game then, specifics. We were talking about in the off between the break. The break, that's what it is. Those are the words.
In the void.
In the void. In the great dark beyond. That Nap is usually the sort of strong, stable top laner. And usually not known for being super flashy. However, by all accounts, Washide has been the weakest top laner. So I at least, I imagine you as well, are hoping that Nap does something a little more than making top lane just Resident Sleeper.
I think that's probably fair. Nap is much more of a team fight player, and whilst Washidai, I think that on balance, probably one of the weaker tops in the region, has looked strong on the split push. So I think that there's a bit of a clash of styles here. And in the later 1v1s, I think that Washidai could actually be favored in that scenario. So I think that, in the laning phase, a lot of the onus is going to be on that for him to apply as much pressure as he can, try and put down V3's top laner as much as he can so that he's coming into these team fights with a lead and he isn't losing too much on the sideline.
And conversely, for V3, we were saying that Yu-Gi-Oh! Might have an angle to take advantages because Kaito has been looking not amazing as the split has been progressing.
I think he's just Nap and Kaito fit into this specific part of a very standard in the LJL where you're playing towards 15 minutes. You're playing towards skirmishes to begin. And unfortunately, both Kaito and Yu-Gi-Oh's pools also lean heavily towards the Syndra, which is a more lane-orientated champion. You're looking specifically to use this as a place to gain gold, generate gold for your team. You find kills repeatedly and play through that. So whilst we're going to be looking at Syndra as a potential steal away here for either side, we're looking for larger play from both of these mid laners to play proactively and use this pick to its best extent. And specifically, yes, I mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh as this, really wanting to get on the Syndra, because this is where this inkling for this slight edge could come in for V3 to find the lead. I think Kaito and Nap can be pretty stable solo laners, because even though it has been working recently, when Kassin is able to play through bot side, play through Nema and Hybrid when they are on point, that's how this team functions and is how it's found great success. So hopefully they'll be able to pick that back up again, and that's specifically through Nema getting on board a little bit, picking it up, and that can help to enable the AD carry that we know and love as Hybrid.
And Hybrid is basically the star of the show for CGA, right? Kassin has been beastly at times, but he is kind of the epitome that we see of CGA being kind of the coin flip team. When they look good, they look really, really good. When they don't, not so much.
I think that sort of that more animal style, I think, is a good way to take it, because at the moment CGA have looked like a bit of a wounded animal. They've lost some of that proactivity. They've not been willing to take as many risks in the early game, and that means that they are getting to this sort of 15-minute mark without really being able to generate anything for themselves, and then they're kind of just getting out team fought. So I think the key things for me in this matchup is that CGA rediscover a little bit more of that early game magic. They use the fact that their bot lane should be heavily winning in this matchup. Hybrid, I think, is just a better player than Dresscode. I don't think there's anyone that is really going to dispute that. And they're going to need to get a win today, because you don't want to be going into playoffs on a downslope, especially being one of the few teams, possibly the only team, to lose to V3 in the regular split.
Certainly so. Time is short on the regular split, and as you say rightly, CGA do not have too long to make good on the end of regular play before playoffs hits. And obviously, V3, it's spoiler season. You take a win here, you could actually ruin CGA, well, not ruin CGA's chances at playoffs, but put them in that 6th place spot that, as you rightly said, Oak, puts them in a really, really, really difficult matchup against whichever team, Rascal Jesters or Sengoku Gaming, does not make it to the Juggernaut match.
Yeah, I'm excited for V3 to maybe be like the Batman clip that's currently circulating, like, oh no, like V3 are beating down CGA, like, who are you? And it's, I'm vengeance. Just send them into the playoffs having to immediately play against Rascal Jester.
Well, Vengeance 3 and CGA, we are into draft for this second game of the day. Guys, take it away.
Let's get this going, Oak.
Let's get it going.
I'm ready.
I want to see what
drafting.
the bands are going to be.
Let's get
just
some
give
drafting.
us one moment whilst we head into it. I think we're going to be just a period of time.
It's going to happen soon. Vengeance 3. I like that, by the way,
still here.
I like that.
Thank you.
You are still here. How are you doing?
You are still here.
How have you
I'm
been?
all right, you know. It's...
Yeah, I've seen you've been hosting a little bit of LJL. How's that been going for you?
You know, I've been feeling pretty good. Here we go. I think I'm going to be transitioning out now.
Goodbye, Brack. Hello, Champion Select. We're into it. It's all good, man. It's all good. Hey, the best things in life take a little bit of time, and we are into draft. CGA picking up that Zeri for Hybrid. I'm liking this already. V3, though, responding with the Rise Hecarim rotation. Both of these champs have been huge priority in the LJL.
Yeah, V3 have decided to ban away through this mid lane instead, and this leaves open this area as a blindable pick. Now, Hybrid, I don't know if he's got to play this champion yet. I think he might have played it once this split, and even after some, many nerfs this champion has received, people are still really easy to happy to slot it into that blue side first pick. It gets countered with the Hecarim, which we've also mentioned already is a very dominant pick in the current meta. Can just play early game gang pressure, really easy full clears, scaling into mid game. What more can you ask for? And they pair that in with the Rise to give a little bit of utility for their team, as well as having access to the Realm Warp. So they're very happy to set themselves up with a very, very open draft to the first rotation.
CGA, though, responding with what I like to call a pretty strong early game jungle support duo. Volibear in the Nautilus, all about that CC, all about early action, all about making stuff happen.
Yeah, and I think taking away the Nautilus against this area as well is really, really important, because Zeri does. Nautilus is one of the best champions to shut down Zeri. That depth charge really disrupts her gameplay pattern. So happy to see that taken away, and also gets Nema on a comfort champion, which we love to see. Take all your mind away from the gameplay. Think about how you want to play the game as of large. And V3 respond immediately with Washida's most played champion this split. LJL is special, and the blind pick Gnar, and they're going to pair that up with a couple of bans, probably heading towards Nap, as well as maybe this mid lane as well. We see the Akali taken away from Nap, because Kaito is yet to play this champion thus far, and Nap had some really good games with Akali, actually the only champions where he has been able to play very proactively in.
Yeah, it has looked very good, and we've sort of ended up with a bit of a mismatch in terms of these drafts. CGA, their jungle and their bot lane locked in, just waiting on those solo lanes. V3, though, locked in both their solo lanes, and then just waiting to lock in their bot lane. It feels like both these sides have recognized where they've got their strongest matchups, and they put as much priority on them as possible. And with that Aatrox ban as well, it feels like V3 are trying to secure a priority matchup for Washida in the top side.
And CJ really smart with the ban too, getting rid of Jinx as well as Xayah. This removes Hatel off of that potential Xayah Rakan combination, but it does open up the opportunity for a Leona. And with a couple of recent AD buffs coming in, gives a little bit more flexibility to look towards maybe Leona with a Kai'Sa, for example, as the Kai'Sa does get locked in there. And I think we saw it last game. We've been seeing it thus far over the patch that we've been getting. Watch all the pro play on. Kai'Sa is very, very good right now. A very, very flexible AD carry, multiple roles that it can slot into within a team. So even now, V3 can decide how they want to turn it, what monster they want to turn this Kai'Sa into, depending on the remaining picks that get locked in for CGA.
Yeah, you can go poke, you can go crit, you can go lethality stuff, and V3, it feels like they've got a lot of champions with a lot of flexibility. Like, you don't need to commit to a compositional style until you see something directly. The Camille is something a little bit different, though, for Nap. That's usually something that I would associate with Washidai.
Yeah, and that's a new pick for Nap. So I'm really excited to see how this is piloted. This is a really good job of handling some of these more range top laners, especially the Snar, because having access to that Hextech ultimatum as well as the hook shot means that if Washidai oversteps, suddenly you're going to get hit by a CC. You're going to have to play very defensively. So I'm excited to see how Nap navigates this lane, because this is going to be a really big pressure point for CGA to play through.
Vex once again picked up for Kaito in the mid lane, one of his most played champions, and Renata Glask is going to be on the side of V3 this game, providing a little bit of counter dive options towards the heavy dive that CGA have picked, especially in that top side.
Absolutely. I really like Renata slotted in very specifically here. I think this champion functions fantastically as a counter pick, because you look at not only all of the auto attack damage that's coming up from CJ, but also look at all the spell effects that's on top of that. Nautilus gets an auto attack off, and he's rooting his own team. Volibear, stuck in that Q passive, could end up stunning a teammate as well. And as you mentioned, CGA very heavy dive focused, and this champion functions so well into that.
I am ready for Nap to prime that Q with the true damage and just kick someone in the face.
Don't choke off Q. Don't choke off ultimate your own teammate. Oh no, Nap, what are you doing? Oh dear. And we get to see these comps form. We get to see them in their entirety now. We are seeing a little bit of difference in play. So I love that CJ are doubling down. I really like this playstyle coming in. It really helps to function with Kassin as their proactive player, their player they should be playing through. I mean, this is really what we're all about, right? Junglers being the proactive play to create advantage states for your team. It's where you should be going in the first place. And it's really the core of pro play. On top of that, though, we see V3 get a really nice scaling comp. There's a little bit of early pressure within this the Hecarim, the Gnar, and the Kai'Sa as well, but really I think a lot of these champions are just looking to get out of laning phase, and we already identified that CGA sometimes, especially in top side, aren't the most proactive players by themselves. Now this may change, however, with Nap unlocking a new champion for him this split in the Camille. Now once we get into the specifics of the once we get into game, we'll talk about the specifics of this matchup. But by and large, I'm excited to see how Kassin maybe changes his priority in play, maybe doesn't look towards hybrid. And as remember, this champion Zeri, not really known for its huge laning pressure. Maybe instead we'll see him pilot towards the top side and look to pressure off Washidai.
I think the key thing for Kassin this game, though, is he's got options, is he's got a lot of lanes that he can play towards. There's a lot of stress up CC as well as the potential for carry, but we're going to have to see if he's able to get that going, as we are going to be heading into game for Crest Gaming Act versus V3 Esports.
Brilliant. Good to see how these, and it's the same thing every game nowadays. We get the ward drop in on bot side, the XP's handed over to the AD carriers. I love it when little mini metas form and then drop out again. I think it just amuses me. We are seeing a couple of rune pages that I think lend towards specific builds. Hella Blades on the Kaiser's pretty much a default at this point, but double phase rush coming from both UGO and Unica, meaning they know that they're playing for successful engages because of the amount of dive from CJ. If they aren't able to find the pick first, they can get that free runaway point, as very scary to be diving into a volley bear Kaito on the Vex there. Yeah,
it can be quite scary. And I just want to touch on a little bit of a summoner spell choice here. Dress Code opting towards this heal, whereas Hybrid has gone towards the cleanse. It feels like there's a lot of pick CC on both teams. Do you think that the heal option specifically here for Dress Code could actually come back to bite him in the later stages?
I mean, absolutely, but the heal is obviously orientated towards getting through this laning phase. I think Nautilus, such a ball of pressure for an AD carry. It makes any AD carry look good in the early game. And I think specifically people have started to see Renata not really as a strong laning threat. It's really once you're getting into mid game, you get access to that. I mean, she has a lot of good tools for skirmishes, specifically in lane, those like they can't really be properly used.
So it's more about waiting until we get a little bit later on into the game when she can drop that hostile takeover and get CGA fighting amongst themselves. It's not been a great few weeks.
Come out. Okay. And I really like this ward coming up from V3 because not only does it potentially scout our gang from Vision, as Nema's going to go and clear out, so I don't get to talk about it anyway. Continue with your points, sir. Continue.
No. It's a good ward. It's a good ward for V3, but well responded to by CGA. And Kassin may be the immediate beneficiaries. The V3 bot lane is not backing off. Dress Code still gets rooted and now has nowhere to go. The flash has already been burned and Hybrid gets the first blood.
And you talked about that cleanse being oh so important, and I mean, it shows it there. Just Code not being able to get out of that CC combination from Nema. Kassin comes in with the gank, really clean first blood, and it goes directly onto Hybrid. It's almost like we said they should be playing through this player.
Yeah.
Yes. They've been watching the LJL OU.
There's a reason that the Zeri has been banned against this guy so many times. Not for necessarily what we just saw, but what's going to happen in around about 15 minutes time if he can keep snowballing. And
I mean, it's just V3 and CGA both playing the game really well. I think V3 do a very smart ward to make sure that they can get this way push uncontested. Nema knows that their jungler's coming in, so clears the ward beforehand to make sure that he can play as aggressively as he wants. Flash auto to force the flash out, Q's afterwards. Very clean first blood.
And the thing is now, with that flash taken off of Dress Code, the repeat ganks can start to come through for CGA, because until that killer instinct is unlocked at the level 6, Kaiser not going to be particularly safe. What I want to see now from Unica, though, is how does he respond to this pressure that Kassin has been putting out?
Absolutely. He went for a full clear there. So not much to speak of. This is a Hecarim default. Big thing now is that, I mean, you look at the lanes that you could gank. You mentioned it already that CJ have a lot of CC coming up from their lanes as Hex Slash is coming in.
It's happening again. It's a good root drop by Hetel, but they're going to be flashed onto and taken out by Hybrid. It's a second gank in as many minutes into this bot lane, and once again, CJ's AD carry is the beneficiary.
V3 are a little bit too late. Unica passed down, but the kill's already been found. So what he ends up doing is just showing on Vision for free. And this is going to give the space for Nap as well as Kassin on reset now to look towards this top side, because they know that Unica is going to be staying on this bot side, potentially clearing, as well as maybe looking for this first Drake, because they're going to have that reset on the support.
And this is something that's been missing from CGA for the past couple weeks. It's been this proactivity from this Kassin, this willingness to gank bot lane in the hyper early stages and make it work. Your Uwin, what we talking about?
Kassin got spotted on a top lane ward, and we see Washidai should have been, he's pinged it, and they had their respect for it, but he's still playing very, very aggressively here. Does get the access to the Mega, and there's no level 6s yet, so no lockdown for Nap. And Washidai gets to actually avoid that gank for free, which I'm pretty sure he should be happy about, because Kassin went out of his way to path towards this top side here.
Yeah, it's a lot of invested time, but ultimately doesn't gain too much for it. And do you know what? Every second that Kassin wastes is time that Unica can spend farming. It's time that a Yu-Gi-Oh can scale up in the mid lane on this rise. It's time that's going to be very valuable to V3. And
as Yu-Gi-Oh hopefully gets a second reset, and we might see some itemization, we could potentially see Unica pathing towards this mid lane. Even after level 6, even with that fear in tow, Rune Prison is such an oppressive tool for making picks, and I really want to see V3 make proactive plays to either, if they can't play it through the lane or mid lane, get Yu-Gi-Oh on map paired up with Unica to look for picks in side lane using that Realm Warp.
Kassin just spotted out there on a ward. V3 have done a relatively good jungler of spotting out Kassin ever since those ganks towards the bottom side of the map. So hopefully for their sake, this Volibear doesn't get too many kills, doesn't get too many more assists, at least in this early game. It's a good start from CJ. 1,500 gold in the lead, but Unica with that level 6, the Onslaught of Shadows unlocked, thinking about ganking mid lane as Nema connects with the hook there onto Hetel in the bot side. Ooh. Guardian proc to keep the Renata a little bit healthier, but once again, Kassin in this bot lane brush.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing where Hetel could maybe have a little bit of lane safety. This handshake, the Q, which knocks an enemy in a target of your direction of your choice, does provide a little bit of safety, but it means that V3 still had to play so safe with this kind of scaling bot lane, and CJ take best advantage of that, get the wave shove in, and immediately look towards his first Drake. And even though Cloud Drakes are notorious early game dragons take in terms of damage, they get to steal it away and set themselves up with even more tempo as well as a gold lead.
Washidai now trading autos here with Nap. Not really seen too much of this top lane as Nema's taken to half HP in the bottom side. But this is a matchup that you said that CGA would be feeling pretty happy about. Camille generally quite good into a lot of these range characters.
Yep, absolutely. And even if it means that Nap isn't able to find kill threat within the early first 10 minutes of the game. Remember, Camilla's not noted for her early game presence. She's noted for the fact that she hits 2 items, she gets a max points in Q, and she starts one-tapping people every 5 seconds. And I'm sure Nap is comfortable in the fact that he can just wait on this timer, wait till he gets his Divine Sundra, Triforce, whatever is applicable here, and look towards the mid-game pressure, diving onto the carries of V3, because remember, even with that killer instinct, it's really hard to get away from Hextech Ultimatum, and Yu-Gi-Oh is going to be by himself in these team fights, by and large.
Yeah, because there isn't a lot of peel, there isn't too much safety. Hetel can provide a lot of that anti-dive on this Renata pick, but aside from that, not really too much else to keep this Rise and the Kaiser alive. Obviously, likely going to be the tank build coming out from Yu-Gi-Oh, so can buy a little bit more time, but true damage still cuts through that pretty effectively.
One of the best parts of this Renata, though, is that the hostile taker is actually so slow that you can't use this Camille ultimate to avoid it. You will still get hit by the AoE. You're still going to end up, and that's going to come in tandem with the rest of the engage from CGA being all dashes, right? As the contest is coming in, and Washidai's almost mega now. They're going to immediately look for this fight as a 5-man in the top side.
5 members of V3, but CGA engaging on the top side. It is going to be the Rift Herald secured here by V3. Washidai is going to pick that one up as Unica is going low and going down. How many more kills can Crest Gaming act? Look, Hybrid is online, resetting with these autos, keeps getting the speed up as Yu-Gi-Oh is trying to roam warp out of there and will just be able to escape. CGA get a couple kills, but crucially don't get that Herald.
I mean, just see this random 5v5 emerge in the top side. I mean, the Herald goes in the favor of V3, but I think they might have got it into... Yeah, they got it onto Washidai, but that was in return for a lot of HP burn very early on, and we get to see it here. So Washidai hits the Mega, but he doesn't really find a big ulti target. In return, V3, I mean, look at the split of damage coming in. 3v2 specifically around this Herald, and even though this hostile taker... Oh, sorry, I should say the bailout comes in for Unica, Mega. It's not enough for them to find a kill quick enough because the damage just isn't in position. Kaito does a fantastic job of choking out the big damage threat coming off of V3, and that gives Hybrid the opportunity to absolutely run them down, look for 2 more kills, and CJ very, very happy with that situation.
Nap dodged away from the Mega Gnar ultimate with the Hextech ultimatum.
I didn't even see
to
that.
get a little bit more damage onto Unica, which meant that Crest Gaming Act ended up picking up those kills, and specifically kills onto Hybrid, who 10.5 minutes into the game already sat on the Trinity Force for this Zeri. He is exactly where CGA want him to be, primed and ready to carry.
You know why that's so impressive? You cannot react to the Gnar ultimate. That Hextech ultimatum is very, very, very quick, but you have to read when Washidai is going to be using that ultimate. So he plays his cards, and he plays his cards well to find a really big win for his team. Very well played from Nap, actually. I'm very happy to see the Camille play already paying out in dividends.
Yeah, it's like we said in Champs Select, not something we typically associate with Nap, but has looked very, very impressive so far. A minute until Infernal Drake would be the second of the game for CGA, as Nemo has been caught out here potentially. But multiple members of CGA are going to be here to the fight. And it's actually Hatel dropping down first. Unica chasing after the Nautilus, but isn't going to be able to take him out. V3 go over aggressive on what they think is a pick, but they get picked themselves.
I mean, I know Nautilus is one of the squishiest supports, but man, look at the lack of damage that you have in your team at the moment, especially with players not really being completely there to support that play. Over-aggression from V3, aptly punished by CGA, and this is leading right into this vision control on second Drake. Now, I was about to say, what a good job V3 were doing in creating some of this vision around this Drake, just as Dragon is spawning, but they immediately sequester 2 kills, and even though this Herald's going to come out in top lane, Unica has to, or UGO has to come and support that, and in turn, hopefully, if CGA are playing on point, they will take complete control of this vision in the bot side, take away all of the vision, and play for the second Drake and set themselves up for another win condition.
Because this is a play that we do see a lot of the time, right? One team will get the Herald and use that to get first tower and a load of gold. Another team will typically get towards those early Drakes, right? And maybe it hasn't panned out in necessarily the most traditional way of V3 securing that Herald. But a crucial thing about that trade, about this trade that we are currently seeing, is that the team that gets the Herald is usually coming out of that trade with a gold advantage, which means it's a lot easier to contest those later Drakes. Oak, that's not the case here.
And on top of that, the Herald was used in top lane. And this creates the perfect situation for Nap. He wants to be planted in this side lane and then holding that TP to find these flanks. And having this wave basically permanently shoved in, and him also having really easy shoving points to swallow CS. If Washidai isn't in top lane all the time, means that not only is Washidai now also locked into this lane, because if he leaves at any point, Nap can very quickly push in and get it under turret. On top of that, it means that
we might be getting a dive.
Oh, there's the front line coming in.
Pushed out the mid lane. Kassid is here. Nemo going to hook himself towards them as the Realm Warp is coming through here. 2 members of E3 joining, and the hostile takeover onto all 4 members of CJ, but they're going to be the ones that get the first kill of the fight. Dress code is going to be dropping low before dropping down in the end, but the hostile takeover will be used. He needs to get a kill to stay alive, but he isn't able to find it in the end. Washidai going low, but nearly at Mega. The health bar's blinking on both sides as Yu-Gi-Oh gets a kill, but it's going to be traded back. The Gnar finally goes Mega. Hybrid just outside of tower range, playing so close. Washidai jumps in, gets the Gnar as well, but doesn't get the auto madness in the bot side. Kills for CGA, and Nap collecting plates and towers in the top.
Yeah, Nap didn't have access to Unleash Teleport again and didn't feel like TPing onto that turret. So it means that CG are playing the 4v5. But man, what a back and forth for a second there. I really thought V3 had found a successful fight, because look at this. You'll see specifically CJ over aggression and this shadow surge specifically from Kaito. He's not able to follow up. Number one, big tool missing. Then immediately the hostile takeover comes in tandem with the team. They find so much damage, but then immediately Hybrid flexes his damage muscles, and alongside that with the rest of the team, they pick up 2 more kills. And really, unfortunately, this bailout from the Renata wasn't enough to find a kill in return to get that res up. So CJ looked really good. They back and forth it constantly. Then Washidai living on the skin of his teeth twice as he finds the Mega to just get a little bit of HP. And then again here, this ultimate just to pick off the shutdown onto Hybrid. What a messy fight, but ultimately in the favor of CGA as they pick up 3 more kills onto this Zeri.
And that's the crazy thing, right, is how many autos Hybrid landed in that fight whilst he was on 10, 15, 20% HP. It's why that we've hyped up this guy so much, because he is able to just skirt a fight right on the limits, secure all of those kills, and now 15 and a half into this game, 5 minutes after he picked up his mythic, he's got to play the Rune King as well. That gold difference between the AD carries is absolutely ludicrous. And
it really shows the difference in these teams. CJ understood their win con in this series. The amount of damage the champion can pull out once it hits 2 or 3 items is also important. They funnel all their gold into Hybrid, our superstar AD carry that I love so much. In return, V3, all of their gold has gone onto Washidai, which whilst is going to help in mid game, you get the beefier frontline damage. It's not going to help your damage pool. Almost all of that is locked into dress code on this Kaiser, and he is only 1.5 items at the moment. Now, V3 are starting for the fight though. Once again, hostile takeover.
Yeah, but the engage is just too quick onto Hetel, uses the bailout, but doesn't buy himself any time. Kaito getting one by Washidai on the other side of the fight, using that gold lead that we mentioned, but the dive is happening in mid lane. Dress code is dead as well. The tower's going to be taken out too. Yes, you kill CGA's mid laner, but that's not the primary carry, V3.
Absolutely, and this Herald's going to get a 3rd charge as well onto this inhibitor, and CGA fishing. Oh, it gets killed just beforehand. Very good from UGO to pick off that Herald before it gets a 3rd charge, and it means their turret stays safe around this inhibitor. But CJ are still, they're not scared of this Renata, and the amount of counter engage that it has, they are still continuing to play aggressively, and it's working out very well for them. And the real reason is because, I mean, we're going to get to see this Herald come in here. The real reason is that Washidai was disconnected from this fight, and he's so much gold for this team. Whilst Kaito doesn't get picked up here, obviously you can see in the center fight, no damage to support Renata's really big goal, which is getting usage of that bailout, that resurrection to whenever they're able to find a takedown, they're unable to do so. And so this spell really isn't holding a lot of intrinsic value by itself. A lot of that agency of that spell is in that resurrection. And this champion's suffering a little bit because of it now. Hetel not having the greatest game at the moment. He's 0-5, and through that as well, we're seeing CJ actually play continually to choke up the vision of V3, to play towards whatever objective spawning. And you're seeing it in the next 15 seconds, the Drake is spawning, and look at the vision around this bot side. It's incomplete, but CJ have taken a grasp on this bot side.
Yeah, it'll do. It'll do. I think that's probably the best way to describe it so far. And I feel like that's the way that CJ are going to be thinking about this game, right? They've built themselves a fairly significant advantage. It's been relatively clean for them. Yes, it's against V3, but they just needed to get a win. The game's not done yet, though, and V3 can still come back. Yujiro gets a double root there as they're trying to engage onto him. But Unica has already taken solo. The first kill of the fight will be secured by V3, though. Hybrid is trying to cut as much as he can as Cassina is Stormbreakering away from this fight, but that's not going to stop the Zeri from going in. This bot lane tower doesn't seem to phase Hybrid at all, as Kaito and Nap are just going to try and get this wave shoved in, but not quite enough minions for CJ to opt into the dive. That was good from V3, honestly.
Yeah, it's a small win. We get the first pick off onto Nema there to stop some of that engage. Even with that depth charge coming in, CJ weren't able to really follow up. But remember, CJ still picked up this Drake and is setting themselves for a really nice early soul point with the Hextech Drake as well, which is probably holds the most intrinsic value out of all of the souls that you can pick up. So CJ definitely very happy about that one. And we're looking at V3 now, looking at, okay, what tools do they have to stall out CJ and look for their own win? And I think shutting down this soul is going to be really important to stopping CJ from finding an early victory. As we see here, just not enough damage really onto Yu-Gi-Oh! This tank build really holding effective value, plus the hostile takeover means Hybrid absolutely shreds his team. And yeah, luckily CJ identify that, they walk out, they just stay, okay, one has died, that's enough, we'll take that. But it was very scary for a second there.
Was Shidai actually being aggressed on by Nap,
oh
who
my God,
probably didn't realize how quite fed the Nile was? It's still mini, so particularly squishy, especially against Kasim. Forced to flash back, and now will continue to cope with the hyperprocs, but turns around for a second too long, and Kasim will punish with ease. Teleports into the fight coming through from Yu-Gi-Oh and Kaito, but in the 1v3 situation, I don't think that the Rise is particularly well favored. Shadow Surge and the Q to deal a little bit of damage with the Realm Warp just in time. Yu-Gi-Oh gets out on a slither.
But in return, it is the shutdown onto Washidai, a very big pickoff for Kasin. They do rotate 4 members down. It looks like V3 have eyes on the mid lane turret, though, as they look towards that. Remember, Unica also got this shove in on the top side as well, so they're choking out. They're trying to gain a little bit of vision around this Baron, because remember, the comp still got a lot of pick potential, and maybe they can look towards an individual pick on CJ, especially if they're able to get Washidai grouped up with their team. You're seeing it here, I think. Nap doesn't respect the power of this Gnar, and even with the I forgot the whole breaker rush coming from Washidai, every single W proc, look at the amount of damage, the attack speed coming in from that component for his Triforce, oh so big, and he finds a solo kill there. And even though Washidai doesn't have falling here, look at the members that they have to throw down towards this spot side. I think the biggest punish point was getting this TP out of Yu-Gi-Oh. Really, I would have loved to see this team identify that actually, you know what, we're forced to kill trade here. We'll take it as is. And Yu-Gi-Oh has to burn both TP and Flash as well as the ultimate just to live here on a slither. Very risky play, and it doesn't really work out in the plan of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think CJ are pretty happy with that one.
Yeah, because Washidai sort of being in those sort of 1v3 scenarios, drawing that pressure is kind of what V3 want him to do at this point in the game, right? He's meant to be this strong split pusher. That's why he's opted into the Trinity Force and the Hullbreaker, really indexing into the 1v1 items. The Yu-Gi-Oh expending resources that didn't really need to be spent, particularly when we've got this Hextech Drake up soon. The Realm Warp will be available, but the TP won't.
And not with the Flash as well. And with this tank build, his specific one goal is locking down a key member of CGA, whether that be Nap if he dashes too far forwards, or Hybrid if he steps up too far. You want to get that Ring Prison on a key target for Unica and Washidai to follow up with a little bit more CC to get some damage on the board. And not having that Flash is a really big issue if they're going to be looking towards that. I mean, look at Hybrid's scoreline right now. He's got his 3rd item as well. So it's a 3-item AD carry at 22 minutes in the game. And it's all Bruiser build, baby, which means that initial pickoff is oh so important just to get potentially the cleanse out, even a kill if Hybrid oversteps far enough.
Also, I'm thinking now, how do V3 actually get access onto Hybrid? Because Yu-Gi-Oh, like we said, doesn't have that Flash. Dress Code, I don't think he's really in a position to 1v1 the Zeri or to dive them particularly aggressively. Kaito diving forward and just one-shots Dress Code. Where did the Kaiser go? Unica tries to get into the backline and deals some damage, but it's not gonna happen, mate. Yu-Gi-Oh now being chased down. Kasingo's gold, and Hybrid skates his way over the wall to kill a couple more people. Washidai gonna be the focus, taken out as Hatel will fall as well. Domination, desolation for V3, and CGA are gonna head straight over to the Baron.
I want to see some efficiency here from CJ. They get the clean ace, they have a wave pushed in on mid lane as well as a strike as well. Use as much of the pressure as you have at this point. So hopefully, once we come back into the live game, we'll see the Baron gone as well as an inhibitor. Kaito, look at this. Bam. Kasin comes in on top of that for the CC to immediately pick off member of V3, and it just spells doom from here as they're constantly walking forwards. And you know what champion loves walking forward? Zeri. Complete rundown coming in here, and immediately, as soon as she picks up Yu-Gi-Oh, dashes forward, flashes forward to continue the fight as well. And with the red buff, it's just doom for V3 as they get absolutely run down. Now, looking at live game now, we've seen the Baron has been picked up as well as that mid lane inhibitor turret, and now they also get to look towards this dragon as well. A little bit later on the tempo, and it looks like V3 might end up picking it up. They not only do they stop the soul, they also get a big bounty as well. But there's a Baron pushing in there looking for the fight.
The Lolbear running forward, but the Shirelias just gets V3 away. I feel like if Hextech Soul had gone over, it's doomed, right? CJ, there's no way that they can lose this game. V3 have bought themselves a lifeline, maybe. But CGA are definitely still in the aggressive position, and V3 are locked under this bot lane tower. Nap could look to take the inhib, or maybe Crest Gaming Act are going to go for a dive here.
I think Nap is being really smart here with delaying this inhib just somewhat. He wants to pull a member of V3 so they can potentially look for the dive through the damage of Kaito, and you're seeing it best there. Half health Unica. V3 have to give up the turret in response, and yeah, CJ playing this macro very, very clean thus far. Hopefully now they can look towards this mid lane inhibitor as this bot lane turret might start to get unlocked. Getting your waves together at the same time is oh so important, so Nap needs to get on that mid wave on the right timer so that both of these waves come in tandem each other and they can really pressure in for potential double inhib.
I love it. CJ have been aggressive when even and patient when behind this game. They understand they're in an advantage and they don't want to let it slip. First damage being dropped onto Hetu, who gets the hostile takeover, but it doesn't buy him any time at all. And it's just a victory march. We said that CGA were patient. Maybe they're just clinical instead. Two very, very easy kills as Nap gets executed in the mid lane for absolutely no reason at all. Shadow Surge not quite going to connect there. This is a 4v3, but the health power advantage is with V3. Can CJ clean this one up? Fear crucially landing there onto Dress Code as Washida is going to be taken out as well. This is going to be a risky play. There's a lot of damage on this Rise. There's a lot of damage on this Kai'Sa, but CGA continuing to go for it. Hybrid hitting down onto that Nexus Tower is just going to be the mid lane inhib and a back away.
Absolutely, yeah. A little bit of overaggression from CJ means they lose a lot of HP. They also use Nap to an execution somehow, which I think is hilarious. And it means that they aren't able to look for the end there, but they get very, very close. Two inhibitors knocked down as well as one of those Nexus turrets. And immediately they're on the ball to know that, well, Hybrid can get this wave shoving on the top side. Baron is still going, by the way, which means they can look towards potentially even a third inhib. And we're seeing... You said clinical, and we can really talk about how clean this dive came in from Kasin. He uses the ultimate to shut down this turret, but on top of that, immediately onto the key member for this disengage for V3. They pick off Hetel first, and that means that whilst this ultimate comes out, it's oh so late to stop the disruption and the dive from CGA, and they get to walk forward, repeatedly finding kill after kill. Nap here, this is quite funny. He ends up tanking about 7 turret autos because he misses that hook shot. So yes, Nap, it's his first game. You have to give him, he's got some learning to do, okay? He's getting ready for it. Do
you know what? Nap, I prescribed to you 2 hours in the practice stall, practicing hook shot wall dives. Been a bit quiet this game, but CJ haven't really needed him to be too loud. Unica just running himself away there. It's not been a great day for him on the Hecarim. Wasn't able to get much done in the early game, and by the time that this Hecarim has got to this sort of later point into the game, now that level 13, the rest of his team were not really in a place to get used to it. CGA, they took down that mid lane, they took down that bot lane inhibitor. Top lane inhib tower going to be the focus, or they may just look for the fight. Kasin once again diving forward as Hetel is going to get taken out right at the start, and it's just too easy. CGA going to clean up this fight. Nap diving under the Nexus towers once again, won't be going down this time. And CGA, they stop the fall. They arrest the development of V3 and are going to take down this Nexus and put themselves a bit more securely in that 5th place playoff spot.
And I'm still CGA are very happy to break that lose streak there. We kind of came into this going, oh, both of these teams have lost quite a lot recently, but CGA finally get a dub, and I think we're both very happy to see it. Really, a little bit of proactivity goes a long way, and we saw it best there from that game. And I think, thankfully, the solo lanes of CGA were on point to back up some of that. The big thing, though, was that Nema's back, Hybrid's back too, and Hybrid had a phenomenal game on a champion that should have really been banned away. In return, I feel like V3, it was something we talked about in Champ Selectors. Maybe this is what they should do. They didn't do it, and they bled a lot for it.
Yeah. Obviously, like you said, CGA, great to grab the win. We've always got to caveat it is against V3, but when you're in that position where you are losing a lot of games where it's not going too well, that mental advantage that just, we've got a W, we've killed the enemy Nexus, can be so pivotal and put you in a better position coming towards the final games of the round robin, of this third round robin, of this regular split, and looking at playoffs as well. We're going to be discussing that game in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. Please wait for this break. We'll be back in just a sec.
Welcome back to the analyst desk, everyone. After game number 2, CGA versus V3. A little bit of rust on CGA, but more than enough to take the win, Oak.
Absolutely. Yeah, we saw some new picks come out from CGA and then some returns to form as well. Specifically, Washidai finding an early lead looked a little bit scary for CGA as Nap struggled a little bit in that matchup, especially once a couple of kills were found on that Gnar. Really struggled with a couple of missed hook shots, but by and large, CGA look like they're returning to form somewhat. Proactive plays continue to be found, even through a couple of maybe some more over-aggressive plays from CGA. They didn't take their foot off the gas there, and they just kept walking forwards, which is brilliant because that's the comp you drafted, and they really want to highlight that because CGA drafted the way we feel like they should have been drafting throughout their loss streak. Like, we really wanted to see more of this Nautilus in tandem with getting or hybrid even on a very, very pivotal carry for this team to play through. They did so there. They got the volley bear as well for some early game access, and they played through it.
Yes.
Let's go.
Brilliant.
And I mean, it turns out enabling hybrid, something we've been saying that CGA should have been doing this entire time, like put your resources into hybrid, he will get you there. Spoilers, in this game, that did happen.
And
I've heard that he's challenging KR.
Yeah, I've heard maybe top 40 challenger career. Keep it on the down low. Yeah, don't tell anyone. But I mean, like, we say this is how they should have been playing on their loss streak. This is how they were playing before their loss streak. The way that they won against Burning Core in 23.5 minutes, which was the fastest game of the split at that point, was through this style. It was consistently ganking towards this bot lane. It was drafting an early skirmish jungler with 2 solo lanes that are going to be stable, if not winning, and then putting a load of pressure into hybrid, getting in these early kills. I think it was 4-0 at one point in that very, very early game. And that means that you're so much better set up to play out fights around Drake, around Harold, wherever you want to take them.
Looking across to V3, obviously, we mentioned Washidai had a pretty damn good game on the Gnar. Was actually kind of pushing Nap around quite a bit, especially in that bot lane where Nap tries to interrupt it back and just gets absolutely smacked for it. That was a circumstance that, you know, I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we did say in the sort of pre-game that Nap's a lot more about the team fights and Washidai is a bit more side lane focused. I didn't think that we'd end up seeing Nap opting into a fight which he so obviously loses. But there we are, and it was another half decent performance from Washidai. Obviously, we've seen it on the Camille, we've seen it a couple of times on our once again this time around. Whilst V3, it's not looking as likely that they're going to end the split with a W in that column, but there are definitely people on this squad, definitely players on this team that have had strong moments.
With their remaining games being against Sengoku Gaming and Rascal Jester. Yeah, probably not. Go ahead, Oak. Sorry to interrupt.
Just to double down on what you're saying, I guess I should say is that I don't know if Washidai did have a good performance this game because all of the gold was funneled onto him, and he did end up finding that fantastic 1v3. But in the early stages of the lane, where I think Camille might be most vulnerable, not really much was done. And then in turn, all of this gold is pumped onto one of your players, and they don't do enough with it. And that's what's important, is that in return, we look at Hybrid, who only had like a 500 gold lead over Washidai at one point in the game. Hybrid kept playing through it. Hybrid, I mean, obviously he's on a carry, so it is a little bit different, but he was the catalyst for the team's success. Whereas you think of Gnar, these AoE wombo team fight options that you get to opt into, just the pure pressure of Mega Gnar can secure your objectives. They never played through that. And I think that's really the downfall of V3, is that if you find gold into a champion like this, larger macro choices really dictate how you can find those continual leads. And they were unable to spread the gold onto the rest of the map and suffered for it.
Yeah, it felt like a lack of adaptability. I mean, I think that you do raise a good point out, because whilst Washidai had some side lane strength, you didn't use the gold lead with your team. And I don't think V3 really navigated or adapted to the way that the game was going, ultimately their downfall.
Symptomatic of their problems, to be sure. We're about to head into another break, which does mean we'll be saying goodbye to you, Middlecourt and Oak. Thank you very much for being along for this first stint of the day. As we said, we'll be throwing it to a break now. When we return, I will be joined by Beautiful Crow and Nymera to close out the day with Rascal Jesters versus Burning Core and Sengoku Gaming versus the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming. These two promise to be very exciting games. Do not miss them.
No.